Aero Blasters on the TurboGrafx and on the Mega Drive, an awesome shooter that I've been playing since I was a kid.
Oh, I love shooters. Is it kind of like Call of Duty?
Quiet, you. Sorry, couldn't help myself. Anyway, this week it's Sega versus Turbo again in a battle of the ports to see which one rules supreme. Sega really needs a win after the last couple of videos, and I think this might be the week to do it. So as usual, I'm going to compare the graphics, the sound, the gameplay, the difficulty, even the cover art to see which port goes home and shags the prom queen. One thing about Aero Blasters is it's a brutally tough game, and if you already watched my top 5 hardest shooters on the Mega Drive, you'll know that it was included. Called Aero Blasters on the PC Engine, but Aero Blasters here, they easily could have just called it Ball Buster and no one would have blinked. Well, if you thought it was brutal on the Mega Drive, just wait till you see the sadism on the Turbo port. So I wanted to make this video not just fun, but also useful, and I included some tips in the gameplay section. So definitely stick around for the gameplay comparison later in the video. Or, if you have the attention span of a goldfish, you can jump right to it now using the chapters I pinned in the comments. I show some of the most maddeningly difficult sections on the Turbo port with some gameplay on how to clear them. So are you ready? Let's start off with the graphics. Fight! Right from the opening level, you can see the Mega Drive version doesn't skimp on the details. It shows the entire aircraft carrier when you take off, followed by multiple layers of cityscape and parallax. Enemy ships are clearly larger sprites as well. When the city's destroyed, the transition on the Turbo is much quicker and goes white before changing backgrounds, while being more gradual on the Mega Drive and having more detail in the background. Stage 2 is another prime example of the extra detail on the Sega, with larger ships and background detail. There's an entire background missing on the speed section of the Turbo, with just black in its place. And the scrolling background during the boss fight looks much cooler on the Mega Drive as well. Stage 3 is a bit more even with the clouds, although rising above the atmosphere looks a bit cooler on the Mega Drive as well. This is pretty much a trend throughout. The Mega Drive version packed an impressive amount of detail into this 4 meg cart. It's possible they did some compression, which may explain the loading screens before each level, which the Turbo doesn't have. It's a great trade-off though for what's a fantastic looking game versus an early Turbo release that didn't take full advantage of the hardware. Again, on stage 5, you have much more interesting background layers versus the repeating pattern on the Turbo that's almost confusing at times to play within. And this stage boss is definitely larger and more impressive. The final stages are very similar, but again there's an extra level of detail in the backgrounds, making it more interesting on the Mega Drive. And same here toward the end in the Maze of Despair leading up to the final encounter with a really cool background. This final section is a real trip that I'll talk about later in the gameplay, as the Turbo version creates large barriers on the top and bottom that you disappear into while playing, making it a real pain. And the final boss, again, is just more impressive here. But before I announced a clear winner here, I did want to mention the lack of presentation on the Mega Drive release. They must have packed this cartridge to the last bit with graphical enhancements, as they literally didn't even have room for an intro or an ending. At least on the Turbo, you get an obligatory exploding space station and ship flying with end credits. And the simple but iconic intro is cool looking as well. The Mega Drive has no intro, just the title screen, and it has no ending. The moment you beat the boss, it's roll credits. Pretty lame after all that work. But despite those minor shortcomings, let there be no doubt, anyone who thinks that the Turbo version holds a candle to the mighty Mega Drive in terms of graphics, not only is wearing rose-colored glasses, but nostalgia-flavored underwear as well. Is that a zonk in your pants? Or are you just happy to see me? The Mega Drive wins the graphics battle by a mile. The Turbo version is a decent looking game, especially for an early release, but they went all out on the Mega Drive port, and you can tell it's a fantastic looking game. Mega Drive wins the graphics battle. Moving on to the sound, and you already know that this one won't be as clear cut. The PC Engine had a fantastic sound chip, and games good or bad were renowned for their amazing chiptunes. And in the sound department, the TurboGrafx version definitely delivers. Not only does it have great music all around, but it actually has a unique track on stage 2 that doesn't exist on the Mega Drive or the arcade. Now that's not to say anything bad about the Mega Drive port, which is also universally excellent. In fact, I prefer a couple of the stages. They have that raw FM sound that fits them perfectly, so it's going to be very close. So here are a few classic tracks on both. Which ones do you prefer? As you can tell, they both sound amazing. I reckon whichever game you have more nostalgia for will end up being your favorite, as aside from that awesome Stage 2 track that's exclusive to the Turbo, the other stages can swing either way. For example, I personally prefer Stage 1 through 3 music on the TurboGrafx, but think that that raw sound of the Mega Drive does wonders for Stages 4 and 5, where I love those versions even more. They sound appropriately badass for those difficult stages versus the lighter, jazzier Turbo renditions. Despite that awesome track on Stage 2 of the Turbo version, which really tempts me to give it the edge, I really can't pick a clear winner here. It wouldn't be right. Both are so universally amazing, I have to give this one a draw. What about the sound effects? Well, to be honest, they're very nondescript in Aero Blasters, both ports, so you don't really notice them. They're more muted, so you can focus on the main event, which is the music, which both ports have in spades. And now we come to the gameplay, and boy, where do I start with this one? You may think I'm starting to sound like a broken record here when I say that the TurboGrafx version is another beast entirely. Now that I've played through it again, it could have easily made my top 5 hardest list on the PC Engine as well, and that's saying something. How hard is it? It makes the already difficult Mega Drive version feel like normal mode by comparison. But this time, unlike with Tatsujin, where the game actually felt and played better on the PC Engine, more like the arcade, the extreme difficulty here isn't always for the better. It's almost like the developers took the original game and said, how can we make a section on each stage as sadistic as possible to upend the player? What can we throw in that's just so ridiculous that they'll bash their head against the wall figuring it out? Now don't get me wrong, some sections are legitimately harder with more bullets to dodge, which I always find a ton of fun. So I love playing this version, but aside from the increased bullets and difficulty, it's the gotcha sections that will have you tearing your hair out. So in addition to showing you some gameplay differences between the two, I'm going to simultaneously show you how to conquer some of the more ridiculous parts of the Turbo version. And believe me, some are downright vicious. But that's what makes these videos fun, right? Well, for you to watch anyway. Stage 1 is actually pretty even on both, and you wouldn't expect a big difference coming from the Mega Drive. But starting on Stage 2, the Turbo version starts laying the pipe. For starters, the speed tunnel seems to run a bit faster. On top of that, the signs on the Mega Drive that tell you what's coming up next have been removed. 'Cause why not? So you'll need to memorize these sections without any warnings. Another change was them nerfing the barrier attachment. On the Sega, I try to keep it long term, as it can also block most bullets and missiles, and it's really handy. Not so on the Turbo. It's pretty much useless aside from the tunnel section. Think you'll be keeping that thing to absorb some bullets? I don't think so. Turbo don't play that. Oh, check out this dodgy hit detection here I noticed while editing the video. How did I not get nailed here? I should have been toast, as I thought the hitbox was bigger than this. Talk about dodging a bullet. Once you make it through the tunnel, plan on getting your dodge on with a sea of bullets if you don't have a good weapon. Seriously, this is Stage 2 you're looking at here. Does it look a bit different than the Mega Drive version here next to it? To be fair, I got here with the wrong weapon on purpose, because I wanted to show this and have some fun dodging around. But the correct way to work through this section is actually with this spread fire sub-weapon. Think back to the Shooter 101 video with blazing lasers where I talked about controlling the enemies on the screen. You want to do the same thing here, and continue to take these turrets out as quickly as possible before they can get a shot off, making this section far more manageable. Of course, if you die, good luck navigating through the rest with a pea shooter. Such is life in the big city. Another super annoying section you'll hit is the snake in the upper atmosphere of Stage 3. It's faster than you and will almost guarantee kill you on your first play. The trick here is it slows down when you're firing into it, but you need to not be firing while evading, or you won't be able to keep away. So follow this diagonal pattern that I'm doing, and nail it while you're moving backwards. Make sure to stop firing when you're maneuvering away to not slow your ship, or it'll catch you. Another example is Stage 4, where if you haven't watched my top 5 hardest Mega Drive video yet, the control of your ship changes in zero gravity. Your ship now floats freely, with momentum, making it much harder to dodge. Only if it wasn't hard enough on the Mega Drive, the effect is even more pronounced on the Turbo. And to add insult to injury, these damn missile patterns being dropped are even more dense, so worming your way in between them is always an exercise in luck. For this stage, I highly recommend having the correct weapon, which is the rear shot. This allows you to take them out like this as they enter the screen, making this incredibly overwhelming section a bit more manageable, at least for a little while. This Centrati looking power armor stage boss is actually a pushover. Just don't be scared of his jump, as he can't reach you at the back of the screen. If you follow what I'm doing here, you'll always stay out of its reach, and also end up behind its green ball attack, and not having to dodge it at all. Stage 5 is a tough one on both versions, but once you get to this rat bastard on the Turbo, you'll know you're playing with fire. In most cases, this would be a totally reasonable bullet pattern to dodge, but because of the screwed up momentum physics, it's near impossible to do traditionally. And on the Turbo, not only does it fire faster, but it also takes more hits, so it can feel like you're dodging forever. The secret here is you can stop your ship from moving by pushing backward at the rear of the screen. So instead of just dodging up and down, press up and down diagonally backwards while pressed up against the screen. This will stop your momentum and allow you to dodge normally. And now we reach the height of shenanigans. If you thought this stage was hard on the Mega Drive, you ain't seen nothing yet. On the Turbo, this is where 1cc's and no death runs go to die, as you absolutely need Lady Luck on your side, along with skill and practice to make it through. The developers really show their cards here and make clear they're just out to get you, for sake of enjoyment, I think. How can we make this section even harder? Oh, I know! Let's make the screen violently shift up and down, for no reason at all, while you're navigating the moving pillars and volleys of missiles. You need to time when the screen shifts will happen and make sure you aren't near any pillars or enemies. See how many close calls I have here? Luckily, you'll respawn if you die, but you can bet your ass I saved the game at the start of this stage, because almost guaranteed, it'll screw me before my run is done. Then you have the Maze of Despair, which needs to be memorized. For most purposes, it's not too different from the Mega Drive version, except for the, speed blocks zipping around the screen. It doesn't help you have a pretty large hitbox here either. Just keep in mind the nose of your jet is not part of it, so you can overlap it when maneuvering through the blocks. Is it possible that I'll actually make it through this stage without getting screwed? This is the last section here, just a few blocks to go, and it's the boss. Here it is. I made it. Oh, you gotta be kidding me! Did you see that shit? I literally made it. The screen went white so I couldn't see my ship, and the block killed me during the transition. Rat bastards, you found a way. No way am I letting that cheap death stand. We're going to do this again. Okay, so where were we? Oh yeah, so this finale is like the final FU. They block off the top and bottom third of the screen so you can't see where you're going. Oh, you can still fly there, you just can't see it. The bullets can fly there too, so unless you're like dodging invisible bullets, all while being invisible yourself, I'd say try not to spend too much time in there. Really, what was the purpose of doing this? I literally see no other reason aside from pure sadism on a stick. No, the right way to maneuver this is to again think back to the Shooter 101 video of maintaining your space. They're going to crowd you here and try to push you into the top and bottom invisible zones. So the trick is to not get trapped and try to maintain center of the screen as much as possible. It's hard enough with a powered up weapon, let alone a pea shooter, so your mileage may vary depending on how you did on the last level. The final boss fires out the balls a lot faster than on the Mega Drive, and they're harder to dodge, so you need to anticipate them incoming and start moving away just as they launch. Once you do this enough times, you'll get to phase 2, which is pretty easy by comparison. Here you can actually dodge into this lower or upper area to avoid the lasers, and the rest is history. And for your troubles, you get an actual ending, unlike the Mega Drive version. But was it worth it? I don't know. Sure, I enjoy this game a lot, but would I give these kind of sadistic gameplay choices a bonus versus the already difficult but fair Mega Drive version? I don't think so. This is one of those cases where the extra difficulty only serves to make the game more frustrating versus more fun. The game does play great, no doubt about it, but this version isn't just hard for the right reasons, but also for the wrong ones. Gameplay on this one has to go to the Mega Drive, giving the Sega a solid victory all around. That being said, as you could tell from the video, both are awesome games. Both have great music and both play great. Just know that if you're going with the Turbo version, be prepared for a world of hurt, unless you're into masochism, like me. And to add insult to injury, the Mega Drive version of the cover art, the import, is definitely the most badass. The US version on the Turbo, The US Genesis version is also kinda lame, but the one on the Mega Drive in Japan, badass cover art. So for anyone that assumes that I'll always be biased, as a Turbo kid, I know where to give credit where credit's due, and I love my Mega Drive shooters as well. I'll always play the Turbo version, for nostalgic reasons and for the extra difficulty, which I enjoy. But in this showdown, the mighty Mega Drive rules supreme and picks up a win for Sega. If you enjoyed this comparison video, I did a couple other really cool and fun ones. One was Truxton Tatsujin, Mega Drive versus PC Engine, and the other, Lords of Thunder, TurboDuo versus SegaCD. Both really cool and fun videos that I had a great time making, and you can check them out right here. Before you go, if you enjoyed the video, please don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell, as I'm working on a lot more really cool content and I release a new one every Sunday. So until the next one, no matter which system you're playing on, take a hit of that shooter crack pipe and smoke 'em if you got 'em.